There's nothing written on that because I don't really need to do it. I even clapped before this, which was unnecessary if I'm doing that. Anyway, I'm shooting a short film very soon. It'll be in just over a week from this video going live. And my original plan was to shoot it on the Blazer Remus 33mm because I ordered that a bit over a month ago, and no, 2 months ago. I ordered that 2 months ago. The plan was that they were going to ship them at the end of November, so I set the date for my shooting of my short film in mid-December because I expected them to be shipped late November. I would get it early December, would be fine. It is currently the 5th of December. It is Thursday. I have not received a notification to say they're shipped yet. I don't think anyone's really getting the silver ones yet. Someone said that they're shipping the silver ones next week. So there's a half decent chance that I might not get that lens before I shoot this film. So I need to make a decision. One, I could just push back the date. Probably wouldn't be too big of a deal, but it actually might, because I might have to, I don't know if I have 2 days elsewhere where I could fit it and have everybody available. So I'm going to figure out what other lens to shoot this on, if not. Now this comes after thinking maybe I could shoot it on a Blackmagic Pixis and then now not being able to do that. So I'm shooting it on my A7 IV. And because I've planned this whole thing to shoot on the 33mm Remus, that is a 1.5 times anamorphic squeeze, which means that the horizontal field of view would be roughly, like a 22-ish sort of field of view. So for all the test shots that I've done to figure out composition and movement and all that sort of stuff is with the 24-70 from Sigma, set at 24, and then I'll just put like 2.35:1 ratio markers on the monitor, and it gives me a rough idea of what it will sort of look like. Because I know horizontally it'll be similar to a 24, and then vertically it would just be that, cropped 33mm look. But again, anamorphic stretching and de-squeezing and all that. I'm going to make videos about the 33 when I do get it, but I don't have it yet. I'm really hoping that I do get it before then, so I'm still planning on shooting it on the 33mm Remus, but if not, it's kind of what this video is for. Right now, I'm shooting on the Nisi Athena 40mm. So 40mm isn't too much tighter than 33, but it's not anamorphic, which means we don't get the extra 1.5 times width. So if I do a 2.4:1 crop, it'll look like this. According to the focus ring on the lens, we're at just under 1.4 meters from the camera. If I was shooting on the 33mm, the camera would either be a decent amount closer or it would just be a wider shot. But there's just some shots in this film that kind of need a wide lens, and especially they need that wide horizontal real estate. So that's why I'm considering maybe shooting it on the 24-70. The benefit of using the 24-70 is I could potentially zoom. I could use other focal lengths. Because I only ordered the 33mm, I don't have the rest of the Remus line. I want to get the B set, but I can't afford it right now. So I just planned all the shots to be shot on the 33mm. Now I can crop into APS-C mode on the A7 IV, which is nice. So it would make it more like a 50mm equivalent, but I was just going to shoot the entire thing on one lens. If I use the 24-70, I can shoot it at that wider 24 and then also just zoom in to, 35, 50, 70, whatever for those different shots that maybe I was going to just shoot up close or crop in a bit. On the other hand, the downside to using the 24-70 is it's an autofocus lens. So the manual focusing experience isn't going to be as good. Now, some of the shots would probably work pretty well with autofocus because if there's a face in it, we can just, eye priority and it'll just track the face perfectly. So then I don't have to have my first AC pulling focus. However, I planned on having a first AC pulling focus the entire time because we were shooting on a manual lens. But with a lens like this, when you're not using autofocus, it's not nearly as good as using a proper manual cinema lens, which has a much longer throw and is much more consistent because it's linear, or maybe not linear, but it's at least consistent. Whereas a lens like this is not necessarily going to be as consistent when you're focusing at different speeds. I'm just going to switch lenses right now and we're going to go to the 24-70 and we'll shoot at 24. So this is what the 24-70 looks like at 24mm. Obviously I set up that shot for the 40mm, so you can see the mic and lights and everything. But just ignore that. And this is what it looks like with the final crop, the 2.4:1 crop. So this is roughly what the 33mm would look like ratio-wise, at least. But I have a few gripes with the 24-70 and why I kind of don't really want to use it. One is there's an autofocus lens, which is good and bad. Good because we can actually use autofocus sometimes if it's just a face in the shot. Might be super easy. Maybe touch to focus might be helpful at some points rather than having somebody do it manually. But if we are going to do manual focus, a lens like this is going to be way better because, you know, it's designed to be manual focus because it's only manual focus. My focus motor will fit straight into the gears, whereas I'll have to put a ring on that one. And also it's not necessarily entirely linear and the focus throw is shorter. So it's just overall, the manual focusing experience on an autofocus lens like this is not going to be as good as on a lens like this. As you may have also noticed, it is a bit darker because this is an f2.8 lens, whereas we were shooting at t2 on the Athena 40mm, and that is a downside because I plan on utilizing that aperture throughout the story for both narrative and lighting purposes. As the story progresses, as different events happen, and as we get to a certain point in the story, we want to be opening up wider so we get a shallower depth of field. And it's also going from, you know, late afternoon into the night. So we're also going to be shooting in darker scenes. We're going to want more light. So it sort of works both ways. And I wanted to go all the way to T2 for a good chunk of the scenes and maybe like T1.8 for 1 or 2 shots. The 40mm is a T1.9, so I could pretty much do that. And the 33mm Remus, which I plan on shooting this whole thing on, is a T1.8. So that's literally why I chose the numbers that I did for the aperture. Now, I may not use exactly T8, T4, T2.8, whatever, T2. I may do a 5.6 or something like that. But it just means that I can't go any wider than this when it comes to aperture if I shoot on the 24-70. Now, the benefit of shooting on the 24-70 is I still get that wide field of view. I can shoot at 24, crop it, and it'll look very similar to the 33mm would, whereas this one, it's just never gonna get that wide look because it is not only tighter, it's also not anamorphic. Spherical lenses, you know, they have a round image circle, whereas with the anamorphic, it squishes it and then you can stretch it out. So you get a wider horizontal field of view, similar to what would be the 24 on this, add the crop, and you've got a similar aspect ratio and field of view as what I would have had on the anamorphic. And the biggest downside that sort of goes for both of these lenses, as I mentioned before, the 40mm is quite clean. So is the 24-70 because it is a photo lens. These two lenses are both very clean and have very little character, whereas an anamorphic like the Blazar Remus that has a lot of character, has barrel distortion, has the silver flares that'll be there, it has oval bokeh. It's just going to provide that look that I was specifically after and why I chose to shoot this project on this lens. I actually bought this lens for this project and then planned the date of the shoot for when I thought that I would have the lens. So that was, I guess, just being optimistic on my part, and it kind of hasn't worked. Maybe, I don't know. It could still show up. But it just means that I won't quite get the look that I was originally going for if I shoot on either of these lenses. Speaking of either of these lenses, I could actually shoot on both. I do prefer the look of the 40mm Athena. One, because it's just a nicer lens than the 24-70 is, and we get the benefits of it being a cinema lens with manual focus and all that sort of stuff, and it opens up wider to T1.9, so I can get those shallow depth of field and those wider aperture shots for low light and for the narrative reasons. But it is 40mm, so I'm not going to be able to get quite as close and get such wide shots. But maybe for those handful of shots that I need to get that are particularly wide, we just switch to the 24-70, shoot it at 24, and then swap. So that's sort of what I may be leaning towards now if the 40 doesn't prove to be wide enough for those shots. I just zoomed into 50 to make it a little bit different. But that sort of demonstrates why like 50 might be a bit too tight for a lot of things, because I do want to stay up in the action very close. It is sort of a thriller type thing, so I want to be close to the actors, which is where that wider lens would benefit, whereas the 40mm, it's on the wider side, but it's still pretty standard. So yeah, my current plan at the moment is to just shoot as much as possible on the 40mm, and then if we need a wider shot, switch to the 24. The downside is I was planning on putting the 24-70 on my FX30 and using that for BTS. So I'm going to have somebody operating this camera entirely as a behind the scenes setup. So that would mean that they would also have to switch lenses or shoot on a manual lens or the 70-200, but that feels a little bit too tight for a lot of the stuff that we'll be doing in pretty small spaces. So I was hoping they were going to have the 24-70. Maybe they will, we'll just have to change lenses. And now that I sort of think about it, I do have a slight regret of selling my 20mm 1.8, because right now I only have my 2 zoom lenses, like that are, you know, autofocus photo lenses, the Sigma 24-70 and the Sony 70-200 Mark II, because I sold my 20mm and my 85mm 1.8. 85 didn't really care too much about because I have the 70-200, that's fine. The 20mm though probably would have been a better stand-in for the 33mm than the 24 is right now. It has the same f-stop as the Remus does t-stop, so I could go all the way down to f1.8. If I just shoot everything at 20mm, do the final crop, and then it's gonna look pretty similar field of view and aspect ratio wise. It just won't have the character that the 33mm Remus will have. But that being said, I don't have that lens anymore, so I can't do anything anyway. And yeah, I guess I could rent something, but I kind of don't really want to have to rent stuff. Like, this is basically a no-budget film, so I don't really have the budget to rent gear. Although I did briefly look into renting an Atlas Mercury. You can get the 36, which would have worked pretty well. They're 1.5 times. I don't know, I may still see how much that would cost, but that's like as a backup, but I also don't want to have to pay for that. Okay, we're back on the Athena 40mm. This looks so much better. Again, at T2. So everything that I've said in this video could potentially and hopefully is moot, because I really hope I do have the 33mm Remus. So if it gets shipped tomorrow, then it should still be here in time, which would be great. So I'm really hoping that still happens, but if not, I would like to hear your thoughts. So please let me know what you think I should do. Should I shoot everything on the 40mm and just change some of the wider shots? Should I shoot everything on the 24-70? Or should I maybe use both? Or should I try and source another lens somehow? This is sort of the only thing that I'm a little bit unsure about, apart from one of the locations. Gear-wise, everything else is like totally fine. I know that we're gonna have enough lighting, and I know audio is gonna be fine with the Comica VM40. So yeah, it's really just this lens, and I'm really hoping that it gets here. Anyway, like I said, let me know your thoughts. Go watch another video, maybe about the Comica VM40, or maybe the 40mm Athena that I'm shooting on now. While you're around, do all the other things. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.